Hey everyone, Synthetic Future here, and welcome to another Micro Modules video. So in today's video we are covering a brand new module called the Wavetable Distortion. So this is our little Wavetable Distortion module, and of course we're going to test it with Lunia. And this first demo is going to be mostly about how a wavetable distortion works. If you're already intimately familiar with wavetable distortions, you can just skip to the next bookmark. And if you're not, stick around. So the little patch we have going on here, Lunia going into wavetable distortion. These two are in parallel. That's important for just in a few seconds. Going into a mixer, going out to the output. So we have a nice little triangle wave going there. So what is a wavetable distortion? Well, it's in the easiest terms, like Lattice said,
speedy thing goes in, speedy thing comes out.
That's pretty much how a wavetable distortion works. You load in a wavetable, and the signal that comes in gets compared to the wavetable and adjusted accordingly. Now, as you might notice, there's very little distortion going on right now because the table is a straight line, meaning that the signal that comes in goes out the way it comes in. So low signal comes in, low signal goes out. High signal comes in, high signal goes out, resulting in just a flat line. Now, we can also adjust this a little bit. And if we turn it to the 50%, this wavetable is perfectly flat, meaning that any signal goes in, comes out as a 0. And if we move it past that point, we get our signal back. But the signal has changed. It actually phase inverts the signal, and that's the reason why I have two of these, is when I turn this one on and I start turning this, we get perfect phase cancellation. And now you know everything there is to know about wavetables. Well, not really. Let's make this a little bit more interesting. So let's load up a different wavetable, which can be done with the little menu button. You can load wavetables, export wavetables, and generate wavetables. We will be generating in a second, but first we're going to just grab another wavetable I've prepared. So this one starts as a straight line. And as you can see, when I change the position by dragging this field, you can hear the distortion kicking in, and every part that's above the 0 line gets boosted. Very asymmetrical distortion. And this is where we can have a little bit of fun, because this is a velocity-driven distortion. If we actually attach the velocity and play something quiet, this controller is a little bit tricky to hit those soft notes, so I'm just going to grab something to visually show you the velocity. Now, ideally you would want to have a symmetrical wave, because now we're only accounting for the positive voltages, but still demonstrates the idea. So if we have a soft sound, it's unaffected. And as the sound gets louder, it gets more and more adjusted to the position. And if you push this to extremes, you basically start to clip the entire signal, generating square wave-ish things. And you can really push this quite far. Now, this effect is not affected by the frequency content. So if you pitch it down, doesn't matter, still reacts to the velocity. A sort of general rule with waveshaper distortions is that if you have a straight line, nothing happens, of course, and in most wavetables, quickly disable the velocity. There we go. You generally see this kind of pushing motion. Now, with sharp edges, this is quite harsh. So what you often see is smoothing on these curves. But that's a very classical distortion effect. So you can load your wavetables here or export any wavetables you generate. Change the position at this spot. And you can of course automate this with some CV. Now for this particular wavetable, it's not the most interesting effect, because you basically get more or less distortion, but that's our LFO input. Underneath we get some manual controls for changing the Waveshaper form. Allowing you to create new wave shapes from your loaded wave shapes. And these controls are quite handy for smoothing things out or making things harsher. It's very experimental, so definitely just try them. I think that's really the big lesson of wavetable distortions. It's really experimental. And once you find some good sounds, you can save them and use them everywhere. Now, aside from these effects, I'm just going to quickly revert to a empty wavetable, and we're going to switch to a saw, because the next control we need to cover is this frequency knob, which is a filter cutoff with resonance and resonance compensation to compensate the volume for the added volume by the resonance. Now, the reason why I need a flat wavetable is because this filter is before the distortion. So to demonstrate this, I have this sawtooth coming in, going through the filter. See if we can find. So yeah, pretty sine wave-like, because we filtered out a lot of the harmonics. Now if we load in a wavetable, that's a little bit more interesting. You can still hear the higher harmonics created by the distortion. So this filter is before the distortion, because otherwise it would have cut all those harmonics out. So the advantage of having the filter before the distortion is that you can cut out a lot of the high content, which will be filled in by the distortion anyway, so you can kind of tame it a little bit back into a more reasonable distortion amount, of course depending on your preferences. So we've seen a fair few boring little wavetables. Let's generate some wavetables. So you can just click generate and it will generate a nice little wavetable you can flip through. And the nice thing with this wavetable distortion is the level affects the amount of distortion you will hear. So you can actually lower the volume of percent. To attenuate the distortion. As you can hear, the wavetable distortion has a very wide range of distortion sounds. You can really go from just soft clipping all the way into brutal, harsh distortion. It really is, I think, one of the most interesting distortion types because it's just so versatile. You can really get any sound out of it you want, which makes it very suitable for this sort of stuff. Nice little bonus feature if you're using Alunia is that you can, of course, grab the LFO from Alunia, have that LFO sync and play around with that. And that's Micro Wavetable Distortion. Would highly recommend checking it out. It will be part, of course, of the micro bundle. So if you want the most value out of your purchase, definitely look into micro bundle. You will get all the micro modules, excluding the micro voices. Those are separate from the micro bundle. But you will get a ton of very, very versatile, highly usable little modules that will fill out your rack nicely to add a lot of versatility while not taking up a whole lot of space. So that's it for me. If there are any questions, drop them down below as per usual, and see you in the next one.